Republican Congressman Aaron Schock of the state of Illinois joins our panel this morning. He's also a Romney supporter. It's nice to see you, sir. Thanks for talking with us.
Hey.
We appreciate your time this morning. All right, we all know Ohio is a must-win, but what about the 9 other states? Mitt Romney has said, you know, I believe if I win Ohio, I'm going to be the nominee. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think it's true, and I think regardless, he's going to win a majority of the states tonight. And, you know, everyone expects this to have been wrapped up by now. The fact of the matter is, statistically, he couldn't have wrapped it up by now. But there's no candidate with more delegates than Mitt Romney. There's no candidate with more support around the country than Mitt Romney. I think he's got the momentum to ultimately close the deal and be the nominee, and I'm confident he will be.
Is that momentum undermined if Rick Santorum, who's leading right now by 18 points in the state of Tennessee and who's leading at Oklahoma as well, has big wins in those 2 states? Tennessee has the 2nd highest number of delegates.
Well, Rick Santorum has proven to do well among some of the more conservative members of our primary voters. But at the end of the day, Mitt Romney has held his own Republican conservative voters, but he's also proven to be the strongest for independent and swing voters that will ultimately decide the election in November. And I had to chuckle when I heard your play in there of Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum criticizing Mitt Romney. The fact of the matter is the polls show he is the strongest candidate for our party to nominate in the general election. So I think the Republican primary voters get it. It's why they have chosen him time and time again in all these primary states, why he has more delegates.
And so you think that's what's responsible for the coalescing, as opposed to, you know, last week it was a big debate over who's really the true conservative. You think it's a, listen, we need a nominee and we're now going to coalesce, or is it, listen, Mitt Romney really is the true conservative here? What is it?
Well, look, I mean, it's all relative. I mean, compared to Barack Obama, all of the candidates in the race are true conservatives. A year ago, Mitt Romney was the conservative alternative to John McCain. Many of the same people who are claiming he's not conservative enough were backing Mitt Romney last time because they thought he was more conservative than John McCain. At the end of the day, I'll tell you what my voters in Central Illinois are concerned about is the economy. And it's unemployment, but it's also the growing cost of living in America, whether it's the gas prices, whether it's the food prices, whether it's the health care costs that continue to skyrocket despite the passage of the health care bill. These are the things Americans are concerned about, and Mitt Romney laying out his very comprehensive tax reform proposal, his background in job creation, those are the things that I think compel both Republican primary voters and also those independent voters to say, you know what? We've tried the Obama policies. They haven't really turned this thing around. Obama's own words said, you know, if we don't have this turned around in 3 years, it'll be a one-term proposition. That's why more than half of Americans are saying it's time for someone new, and I think Mitt Romney's the strongest guy to lead in the general election and ultimately to succeed President Obama.
First Lady Barbara Bush, former First Lady Barbara Bush, was on our affiliate WFAA in Tech, and she said this is the worst ever. I'm going to play a little chunk and we'll talk about it on the other side.
It's been, I think, the worst campaign I've ever seen in my life. I just hate it. I hate the fact that people think compromise is a dirty word.
I always loved that she never really minced words when she was in the White House. Do you think that's true, that it's really spun out of control and this is the nastiest ever?
Well, look, I love Barbara Bush, and I would say that, you know, the primary that George Herbert Walker Bush, her husband, had in the Republican primary when he was running for re-election was pretty nasty. You know, there have been tough battles before. President George Herbert Walker Bush's primary with Ronald Reagan was tough in the 80s. I do believe, though, at the end of this election, people will be looking back after November and saying this was one of the nastiest general elections they've ever seen. And part of that is because I'm from the president's home state, and I know that the president's record is not a positive one that he can run on. And having followed, you know, David Axelrod and Robert Gibbs and the Chicago machine, if you will, this is bare-knuckle politics. Chicago machine politics gets pretty nasty. And if these are the guys that can get Rod Blagojevich, the corrupt governor in Illinois, reelected, I have no question in my mind what kind of presidential campaign will be run. It will be the politics of personal destruction, and they will be going after whoever our nominee is with all the negative ads that money can buy, that $1 billion can buy.
Hold on one second, Congressman Schock. Let me stop you there because I want to ask even more. Of course, you write this editorial page. Do you think that's true? Do you think when he points out that is this the nastiest, as the former First Lady says? Do you think it's going to be the nastiest, as the Congressman's predicting?
It's been nasty, but the stakes are high, and these races always get nasty. But, you know, it's interesting, Congressman, great to see you, by the way, and as you know, I'm from your great state of Illinois. But I wanted to ask you, and by the way, I agree with you entirely. If Mitt Romney wins this race, I think it will be because he takes at the Wall Street Journal editorial page and came out with that ambitious
Are you promoting the Wall Street Journal
No, but I think that tax plan that he came out with the across-the-board tax cut, I think it was really critical. But I wanted to tell you something that kind of makes me angry. Now I live in Virginia, and when I get back from New York today, I'm going to vote in the Virginia primary. What troubles me is in Virginia, neither Rick Santorum nor Newt Gingrich are on the ballot in that state. And why is it that Republicans are denying the candidates the ability to be on the...
Congressman Schuck answer that question. Yeah. So why is it, do you think?
Well, look, every state has its own rules. I can't speak for why Virginia has the more onerous rules that they had, but, I mean, at the end of the day, let's face it, each candidate that got in the presidential race knew what the rules of engagement were, knew what the rules for each state were. And Newt Gingrich made the calculation, Rick Santorum made the calculation that for whatever reason they were not going to get the signatures required. I'm not an expert on Virginia law, but I understand you have to get a certain number in each congressional district. It's very onerous, but it's up to Virginia to change its rules. And the Virginia legislature, the Republican Central Committee there to make those rules changes. Look, I think everybody should be able to play if they play by the same rules. And I think regardless, Mitt Romney would be doing very well in Virginia, regardless of who's on the ballot. But I certainly share your frustration.
Congressman Aaron Schuck, it's nice to see you. Thanks for talking with us this morning.